So I have had really hopeful endings to the point where it's like ridiculous. I don't know about your own history, but it seems to follow the presence of hope. Like when times are good, you're going to be making a certain kind of film. And when times are not good, you're going to be making another kind of film. Without any sort of plan, it's just your reaction to your environment. Those are words from director Gus Van Sant in conversation with Kelly Reichardt on her 2006 film, Old Joy. Seeing Faces in Movies is a podcast where each month I focus on the works of a different director or cinematographer, and each week I invite a guest on to discuss a film and the artist's filmography. I'm your host, Felicia, and today's film is Old Joy. So a very quick synopsis of the film is two old friends, Kurt and Mark, reunite for a weekend camping trip in the Cascade Mountain Range east of Portland, Oregon. When they arrive at their final destination, a hot spring deep in the forest, they must confront the divergent paths they have taken in their life. The film stars Daniel London as Mark, Will Oldham as Kurt, Tanya Smith as Tanya, and Robin Rosenberg as the waitress. It's written by Jonathan Raymond and Kelly Reichardt, cinematography by Peter Sillen, directed and edited by Kelly Reichardt, and music by Yola Tango and Smoking Hormel. Today, my guest is Marc Basque. We know each other from going to film school together. Oddly enough, we found out much later that we were in the same classes.
Accurate.
But you're also a film programmer at Eyesore Cinema here in Toronto, and would love if you could tell the listeners what the film program is about.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for having me on, Felicia. This is awesome. I am someone who I base my entire life around film. Like it's everything that I do. I'm surrounded
Mhm.
by a collection of over 800 VHS tapes on either side of me, along with a bunch of DVDs and Blu-rays, Laserdisc, Betamax. As you said, I went to film school, and
Mhm.
so at a certain point, I was like, okay, I haven't become like a famous writer. I'm not Paul Thomas Anderson. That hasn't happened. In fact, I haven't made anything in like the last, 10, 15 years. And I'm like, well, if I'm going to continue to love film this much, I'm going to have to try to find other venues to share it with other people. And I think that's why everyone becomes a film programmer. And I think, everyone, whatever film program we have, it is mostly just a clothesline to share things that we love with other people. So I just try to look at the landscape here in Toronto and go, what am I not seeing being shown?
Mhm.
That I love, that I'm really passionate about. So my series is called Waste of Taste. The first series we did was three films, three by Petrikis, three films by Michigan filmmaker Joel Petrikis. So we showed Buzzard, the Alchemist Cookbook, and Relaxer. And he actually had a new movie that came out recently called Vulcan Isadora, which is a direct sequel to Buzzard, and I'm hoping to show that eventually.
Nice.
Maybe get Joel down to Toronto, because I really feel like even though that one came out, it only played briefly at the Fox in the East End of Toronto, and I feel like I heard no one talking about it. So yeah, Joel Petrikis is a filmmaker I'm really passionate about, that I want to share. And recently we also showed three films by Greg Araki, the Apocalypse
Mhm.
trilogy, which are these incredibly modern queer punk sociological studies of teenagers in Los Angeles, which I'm absolutely in love with. So yeah, there's no really like super overarching premise towards the series. It's just films that I feel like I don't see as many people talking about as others. So this month, although this will probably air later in November, we're
Mhm.
showing Paul Schrader's Affliction.
Oh, no.
Um,
Yep.
yeah, just a nice classic for just in time for seasonal depression. Um, but one of my favorite movies. And yeah, we're going to be showing some stuff in January and February, but haven't announced it yet. So hopefully we can put it in the show notes. But that's basically it. Please join us. So I don't know if I mentioned it. It might have been on the first time we tried to record this, but we're at Eyesore Cinema on Bloor and Dufferin in Toronto.
Yep. And you can either before or after the screenings go rent or buy some DVD Blu-rays in the shop if you want.
Laserdisc, VHS,
Yeah, there you
they
go.
have a ton. Great spot.
It is a great spot. I've been following Eyesore for a very long time back when they were on the upstairs of the old Rotate This. Dating myself for sure.
And I sort of like, yeah, it's a really great intimate space. Micro cinema. I love micro cinemas. There's so much cool stuff happening in the city.
We are talking about another film today, but I am curious though what your relationship is to her work, how you got into her films, and maybe how many you've seen so far.
Yeah. I got into Kelly Reichardt with the film that we're going to be talking about today, which is Old Joy. I saw it in university at some point. Yeah, it had come out not that long before I went to university. I shouldn't be giving any specific dates. This is wrong. I'm violating
I
the
might have to
pact.
edit that. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
please
okay.
do.
We'll edit
Yeah, I had seen this one and it made like just such a huge impression on me. I was actually a little bit scared to watch it more recently for the
it.
episode, that I wouldn't love it as much as I loved it back then, so I've only seen it a few times. Of course I loved it more. That's
Yeah,
how this movie works, because a lot of it's about aging and it's stuff you don't really understand in your early 20s that you start to understand in your 30s. Of course, I'm not saying that either of us are in our 30s. That would be ridiculous.
it really
Um,
would.
yeah, but it's such a great movie. I was immediately struck by her directorial style. I feel like she was a true original then. She was a true original in the 90s when she made, her first movie, and she
Hmm.
remains a true original. I don't feel like anyone really does what she does
Yeah,
in contemporary cinema. Yeah, I think she's one of the greats that we have working right now.
truly.
I've seen all of her movies other than The Mastermind with the
Yeah.
wickedly talented Josh O'Connor.
I'm excited. I'm excited to watch it. I've heard nothing but the best of things from people who enjoy film.
It's interesting. I'm just gonna absolutely talk about a different movie, but I watched First Cow again recently with my dad. And I
Mm.
was like, oh, he's gonna be so bored. Like, not really a slow cinema enjoyer, but he was like wrapped by it. And I was like, I
Uh,
just think like her like specificity and like,
mhm.
yeah, her use of location and just all the details of just people like living their life. I just feel like it actually really resonates.
Yeah.
If you care about like whatever milieu it is. So I think he was just interested in the time that it was set. But I was like, oh, good. I feel like these movies in special cases do have like crossover potential. They're not like, I don't feel like they're like art objects, like they're not obscure art objects or anything like that. They're just movies about like working class people that are
Yeah.
like very very small and observant. And I love big movies. I love PTA and Scorsese and
Hmm.
movies that are very um ostentatious in their style, but I think I equally love stuff that is like very tender, very specific, very small stuff where like a lot of the drama is happening like on the margins,
Hmm.
where there's like a life that's being lived out. You can feel the life that's being lived just outside of everything that's happening. I think that's I think Old Joy is for me is the most evocative of all of her movies. Still remains my favorite, although I think she's made nothing but excellent movies. Only one I would
Yeah.
need to see again is Night Moves. But
Hmm.
that's to me that feels like her most genre movie. Like it feels almost unlike her movies. So I appreciate when she works outside of genre, and just makes stuff that's just very, very observant, very quiet, very assured, very contemplative.
I of something you said, I just want to jump off that. I think a lot of people who don't necessarily gravitate towards her work think of them kind of, as you said, like art objects, but I don't agree that they are. I think they're incredibly simple plots and premises and very easy to watch and take in. I
Yeah,
think it's the slowness of it that detracts people, but I also think that
yeah,
that's how life works. Life is very slow, sometimes it's very fast, but most of our everyday is like just kind of like, you know, trudging along, and that's how our films are.
Yeah.
And it works for some people. Obviously, it works for us. That's why we're here today. It might not work for others.
I showed during the pandemic. I had a film club
Mm,
that ended up going online. Like once the pandemic started, obviously, and I showed certain women, and
nice.
there were a lot of unimpressed people. A
Oh,
lot of people
wow.
did not vibe with it. They were like, "What was the point of that? That was so slow." So, yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's you have to be maybe tuned to that register. But
Mm,
I think they are simple, but I think they're deceptively simple, where there's just like a lot going on. Her movies to me remind me of short stories. And I always
yeah.
think that short stories are actually the perfect medium, that like film is the perfect medium to adapt short stories, because I feel like whenever you adapt a novel into a film, there's always those annoying people
Yeah.
that are like, it's the book, the book was better. The book, didn't have that scene in the book. Where
Yeah.
was where was Tom Bombadil? And I'm like, I totally get it, but let's see, we can't have 15 Quidditch matches or whatever in this movie. It wouldn't like make any goddamn sense. I'm just in a constant argument with Josh Lewis over this. We'll be like watching Dune 2 or
Hmm.
whatever, and he'll be like, in Dune 2, there's a whole subplot about the genocide of the Gorgonxian people. And I'm like, you
Yeah.
cannot, like, film is a different medium, you can't adapt it. This is all to say, I feel like Kelly Reichardt, like, her movies unfold like short stories. they're
Hmm.
they're 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 small in scope, but rich in detail, and rich in like humanity.
Um, Old Joy that we're talking about today is very much an outdoors film. And one of the first things I want to talk about, because I thought this when I was watching it, I was like, maybe I'm putting my own bias on this film.
Which I'm absolutely gonna do a little later as
We
well.
all should.
This is what art is for.
Exactly. Well, I mean, again, another aside, but she says I always have to do my asides. She said specifically that she loves to have open endings to things, and she hates talking about the movies post them being done because she's like, it's not my job to explain the movie to you. It's now yours. This movie is yours now. So
Yeah.
you have an interpretation to
I'm
it.
really glad, because certain of her interpretations of this movie I find actually
Yeah.
the least interesting. Not all of them, but like one specific sort of interpretation that she has of this movie, and like a lot of its action. I
Okay.
find like, as like I think there's a lot of threads that are happening in this movie. Again, it's like deceptively complicated for a movie that's like 70 minutes of like a lot of
Hmm.
open driving shots, a lot of silent moments, a lot of walking, a lot of small talk, a lot of shots of other things other than just the actors, a lot of shots of
Hmm.
nature, walking through the forest. And another way that she's like different than Malik, I feel like a lot of this movie is beautiful, but she doesn't really make an attempt to make it beautiful. She's not gonna like wait until golden hour to
Yeah.
shoot
Hmm.
something and shoot for like 10 minutes. She's gonna show it how it really is. So when it's beautiful, but when it's ordinary, it's just completely ordinary. And like the way she shoots the town in this movie, also the town in Wendy and Lucy, later, and to some extent like River of Grass. I think about something that Will Sloan said about Clint Eastwood, and specifically when he made 1517 to Paris, which was like, there's no filmmaker who like depicts the America that I see whenever I drive through it. Like cheap
Oh,
apartments, ugly strip malls, crumbling Legion
yeah.
halls, shot very matter of factly. And so I feel like in the parts in this movie, like, they go camping in Old Joy, but they end up in a place that has like a couch and like garbage and stuff. And Kurt even says like, what's the difference between the city and the forest and nature now? Like there's garbage in the forest, and there's like trees in the downtown. Yeah, so I feel like she's not always looking for like the most beautiful thing. Obviously, once they finally at the end of the movie get to the hot spring, like there's so many beautiful shots and everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just feel like she's very responsive to wherever she is. And yeah, she's not trying to shoot around the garbage. She's trying to shoot the garbage.
No, exactly. And I love that. It kind of ties into something she said and something that I had kind of thought about the film, she considers it like a new age Western. Um, and
I saw that.
as someone who's like a huge Western fan, I was like, this feels like one of those Westerns because I know a lot of people who don't like Westerns, they just think it's one thing, the cowboys versus Indians. I'm like,
Yeah,
that's a small section of that genre. It's
sure.
essentially always a lot of the time like a hangout between men most of the time. And I felt that, and it can be ugly and gritty. Like, this is not that this is ugly, it's just, as you said, kind of matter of fact. Oddly enough, a lot of time, and most people probably wouldn't think this way, is that Westerns, especially those hangout ones between men, allow those characters to actually open up to one another, in which they wouldn't normally, because there's a lot
Interesting.
of time spent outside by themselves where they feel like I can open up. It's not always the case, but it definitely is the case in this film. They obviously know each other for a long time, but they have grown apart.
Mm.
I'm sure we can all relate to that, of people that you knew for a long time and sort of catch up with, maybe respond to an Instagram story, but you haven't seen them in years. And when you do, and you're spending some time with them, things are awkward.
I feel like you have to catch up even before you can really spend quality time. And a lot of times you don't even get to get past the catching up before
I
you see
know.
one another again. Yeah, I find it interesting that she calls it a Western. I'm glad that you said that because I didn't really know what she meant by that. Um, and I think that you said something very interesting. But yeah, for me, the movie is all about this. Yeah, this obviously this connection that's trying to be made. But
Hmm.
yeah, it's so much about what cannot be spoken and what isn't said and what's repressed. And so you wish they got to sit over a can of beans and, tell each other they both loved each other and stuff.
No.
But it's like every time there is a moment like that, it's halting. It's like, it's awkward. So I don't know if this would be my double feature. And I don't know if I am, skipping ahead segments here, but the movie that it reminded me of the most right now, I actually have a separate movie for the double feature, so don't worry
Okay.
about that. But the movie that it reminded me of the most, like that I had seen recently, is actually a Real Pain. Have you seen that?
Oh,
Jesse
yes, the
Eisenberg's
Jesse
movie?
Eisenberg. Yes, yeah,
Yeah, Jesse
I have
Eisenberg.
seen
And
that.
it reminded me so much to the point where I'm like, I feel like Jesse
Hmm.
Eisenberg is like ripping this off like a little bit and making a little bit more Hollywood. But it's like to me, like, yeah, people talk about this movie all the time about people, trying to connect and how awkward it is. And it's like, I feel like that's the text of the movie. But it gets more interesting under the surface. Obviously, it's still sort of about that, but I feel like that's just on the surface what it's about, two people who can't connect,
Yeah,
because they've grown apart. But this time I saw it and I was like, man, this is a movie about a person who, even though they're like, maybe they're not settled into their life completely. First time we see Mark in this movie, he's trying to meditate. He's not able to. He has kind of a very, not an argument, but like a passive aggressive conversation with his wife, who is just, why are you trying to get permission from me
yeah,
to go to on this trip with Kurt, basically, where they go looking for this hot springs. But even though like that, he's not quite settled in, he does have a kid on the way. He has a life, he has a wife, he has a house. We never see Kurt with any of this stuff. The first time we hear from him, he's left the message on the machine, and he's basically like at the tail end of his trip. And I was like, hey, I want to see you. He doesn't like, make plans in advance. Like, hey, I'm going to be there in a month. We get the sense
yeah,
of him as this like drifter who does not plan, who, doesn't really have his life together at all. And we can talk about the ending later. But to me, like, this is just a movie about like one person who has a direction and one person who is just completely lost, who is deeply, deeply lonely, who's yearning to connect, has an inability or a fear to like be able to express himself. But there is also a freedom in that because he is constantly like able to say things and put himself in a vulnerable position.
yeah,
But Mark can't. And part of that is like, I think this movie is a lot about like masculinity, and like how men relate to each other and how they are allowed to relate with one another. So like there's that moment, like, which would be the end of the movie in most movies, but is like halfway in this movie, where Kurt is at the fire with him when they're camping, and he's just like, I miss you. Like, I miss you so much. Like, there's something between us, like, and I want it to like go away. And he's saying like what is deeply on his mind, and Mark like won't even really have that conversation. He's just like, hey man, like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And that is like basically how men express themselves in a lot of conversations. Even when you have conversations like I have, I'm friends with men. I have a lot of friends who are women. The conversations
Hmm.
I have between them, this is not including like queer men and stuff, but just
Yeah.
like straight cis men, like it's like even when you do acknowledge something,
Yeah.
it'll be like, how was your day? It's like, oh, I had a really bad day. It's like, hey, I'm sorry to hear that. Hope it gets better. And like, when you hang out with women, it's just like, all right, let's talk. Like, what's going on? Like, what's going on
Yeah.
with you? Like, what's up? Like, you don't look yourself.
Yep.
What's happening? You can actually like talk about it. But like, yeah, so they are bound by these masculine codes of like, of how they're allowed to talk to each other. And then when Mark sort of rebukes him and won't be vulnerable with him and won't connect with him and won't like actually take that, because like, to Mark, this guy is like, again, it's like a drifter coming into your life. It's like someone you used to know, but you're not close. So he's not that close with Kurt anymore, but Kurt is really close with him. Like Kurt considers him.
Yeah.
So it's like there's a lot more going. It's not just like a movie about like, two friends, we used to be friends, but like now we've drifted apart. I got this wife, you got this girlfriend, you're living in Vegas. I'm like a family man. It's like it's a movie about someone who's like desperately trying to make a connection with somebody, trying to find that joy. um
There you go.
I also do want to talk about like the queer
Yeah.
reading of this movie, because I
Yeah.
have been desperately trying to find people talking about it online, and we don't have to get into that right now. If you don't, we can talk more about like the movie. I'm sort of jumping from take to take right now.
No, no, that's okay. We can definitely talk about it because I also was trying to find some information on it. There's really not many people who are talking about it, but I'm sure it'll come up as we get closer
Yeah,
to the
we
end of
can
the
go
film.
through sort of the movie a little bit.
I think there's so much that you said that I fully agree with and was already also in my notes, so that's great. They're on the same page. I want to track back just quickly to kind of
Please.
you talked about the introduction of both of these characters,
Yeah,
um, because I think it's very important. And the way she always introduces characters is always fascinating to me because she's very much more interested in what's happening around them and utilizing the actor's expressions more so than utilizing the script. I think the
totally.
script is usually her last priority on the list of priorities to tell the story.
Which is the opposite of like televisual, like
Yeah.
prestige TV is like. And I think this is one of the ways that like TV and movies really are different. Like people act like, oh, well, TV is so much better. It's like, TV is great, and there's a lot of great TV. There's a lot of bad TV that seems like it's really great. That's really not all that good. But cinema is like use of silence, and like not necessarily prioritizing the dialogue. I feel like a lot of TV shows could work as radio dramas, even when they do
Yeah.
have like nice montages and stuff.
I think it's interesting the way they're both introduced because you talked about Mark's introduction and Kurt's introduction, and apart from the conversation between Mark and his wife, really not much is said. At some point after that, we follow Mark in the car, and he's listening to the talk radio, and
Yeah,
it's
Air America.
obviously very overtly political show. And there's a lot on the radio. Now, watching it, I was like, I know that the radio means something she's obviously trying to say. What his political affiliations are, or how deep he wants to get politically without having him to actually say, oh, I'm a leftist or I'm a Democrat, because it would not be relevant to the story. Um, there's a lot of things that have been said by multiple film critics and by herself. And I actually wondered if one of the things that you don't like that she said, her interpretations, is relating to
100%.
this.
Yeah, this is it.
Okay.
So this is interesting because it's an element that I don't think that it doesn't work, but I think it doesn't work in the way that she necessarily is framing it. I do think maybe
Mm,
she's just kind of saying that. I'm not trying to say that she is disingenuous, but I think that sometimes it is easy when you're promoting your movie to be like, yeah, it has this like political element to it as well. I feel like that's the most underdeveloped. And the reason I think that is I think it's just a coloring detail. It just tells us about Mark. I don't think
Yes.
it's a thematic through line of the movie. Like Kelly talks
Yeah.
about like how, you know, about leftists obviously who are, feel what's the word, disenchanted,
Hmm.
who aren't able to actually do anything. And I mean that's still relevant now. We still have Democrats who are unable to or unwilling to actually stand up to stuff and actually do things and just run on like who we're not. We're not him. We're not this person. That's who we are. We'll help you with this issue that we could have codified into law if we didn't want to continue to like make money off of it. So yeah, like I'm fully on board with like this thing about that Mark is a disaffected leftist who sits in his car and listens to this but isn't really doing anything about it and feels kind of bummed out by that. But I think that's just part of his alienation with like the life that he's living and sort of what he's seeking. The reason he says yes to Kurt, even though he doesn't like he hasn't seen this person in a while, he's not reliable whatsoever. He doesn't know if he actually knows where this place is going to be. The reason he actually does leave the town is he is feeling that alienation. He's trying to meditate in the first scene of the movie. We hear the sound design in this movie is amazing. Another one of the reasons that Kelly Reichardt's one of my favorite filmmakers. Absolutely
Hmm.
impeccable sound design, just like very minimal, like matches the photography, matches like it's not trying to prettify anything. It's just like catching a mood. The score in this movie is fantastic by Yola
Hmm.
Tango. It doesn't try to do more than it needs to. It just very much it fits the theme, the location, the feeling. But yeah, he's disaffected, and I think that's enough. I don't think we have to take the whole movie to have this. But I that is like I read that an interview with her, and I was like, I find this not compelling whatsoever. I feel like the movie is about people connecting, about masculinity, possibly some queer subtext. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, that reading doesn't do anything for me.
Yeah. Well, I agree because I didn't watching it. I definitely didn't feel like it meant more than just being like, hey, this guy is a hipster who, you know, is a leftist and is just listening. He's trying to keep
Lives
up
in
on things.
Portland.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, that totally makes sense. I didn't read anything outside of that because I know it comes back again in the end of the film when he's driving, but it's just like he obviously just has it on the channel
Yeah,
and hasn't changed it.
to me, this is what separates Kelly Reichardt from like other because like it's one of my least favorite tropes in movies is like the radio or the TV is on and historical events are playing
Oh yeah.
background. Some movies can mobilize it well, but like I don't know. I think of Killing Them Softly with Brad Pitt and James Gandolfini.
Okay.
Which is honestly not a terrible movie. I actually like the movie. But yeah, like Obama is on the radio and all the things and he's talking about and it's like it is part of the movie, but I don't know. I just find it really
Yeah.
heavy-handed. And I don't see Kelly Reichardt as a heavy-handed filmmaker.
No,
Um,
not at all.
yeah, and even if this is was her intent while making the movie, I'm strongly, in favor of death of the author and like exactly what she said, like once I've made it, like it's in your hands, and sometimes we don't know exactly what we've made because that's part of art. Art
Hmm.
to me is meant to be ambiguous, which is why when I will proffer a queer reading of this movie, uh I will not say like I think this is what this movie's about. I'm just following film language here, and
Yeah.
this is what I'm reading. I feel like I can support it. I'm not like making it up, but it doesn't have to be. That's why this is such a rich, again, like 75-minute movie with like
I
probably
know.
10 to 15 minutes of dialogue. I hope I'm not glazing it too much, but it is one of my favorite movies.
No, not at all. I think that it's wild to me that this movie is only 73, 75 minutes and that it never feels like it's missing anything, never feels like it's rushed.
And in fact, like it's very, I don't want to say, I mean, it is slow, obviously, but it's very like
Hmm.
measured.
Hmm.
It's just
Yes.
it doesn't the score is measured. It's not rushing to get there. It has scenes that if you were just half watching this movie, you could be like, oh, that was a very padded movie. That was like a short film that they turned into a feature-length movie, which is true for a lot of movies. I don't think that that's because okay, so I finally cracked open the Criterion Blu-ray for this movie. And I watched some special features, and I watched a conversation between Daniel London, who plays Mark, and Will
Mhm.
Oldham, who plays Kurt. And I just always want to call him Bonnie Prince Billy because I love Bonnie. I think that's his musical artist name.
Yeah.
And I love Bonnie Prince Billy so much.
Oh,
So
nice. Okay.
Bonnie is talking to Daniel, and yeah, Daniel was talking about how the experience of making it was just so not like what a movie usually feels like. And he's like, it's like we could have been doing anything. He's like, it's like we were helping a friend move. You know,
Oh,
we were
okay.
together. We were a small group of people accomplishing a task. But he's like, we could have been putting up a fence. Like it just felt like it just speaks to this. Like I feel like it translates so much in the movie, and just why I love her movie making, but how organic it is. Like
Yeah.
it didn't feel like a Hollywood production. I think the crew was only like 6 people. They were all staying at one point in like a cabin nearby, and they're going through this old growth forest, and they're just kind of like they're taking what feels organic and they're leaving what doesn't. So this is based on a short story, and there's a lot of elements from the short story that they abandoned completely. And so I like to imagine just them all walking together through this, and just occasionally the camera going up and like filming, the dog Lucy going across the board.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, let's do our scene now. And then they do the scene, but it's as if they made dinner or something. It just feels so lived in.
Yes, exactly. Because I was gonna say from the moment especially from the moment they get in the car together, I felt like I was just sitting in on this conversation, and I very much felt like I know these 2 guys because we all know these 2 guys. We all have friends who are like Kurt, we all have friends who are like Mark, and
Yeah.
maybe one of us were one of those characters. It felt so familiar to
I
me.
feel so insane, like how much I felt like both of them. Yeah, I think I used to feel like Kurt, and I still do feel like Kurt in a sense, but now I feel more like Mark. Looking back at like connections that I don't like that are like
Yeah.
weakening over time and stuff, and like feeling completely lost, even
Mhm.
though you have some stability, like that alienation. I really I very much relate to alienation in films. I love Taiwanese cinema, Taiwanese new wave. I love Edward Yang, Simon Lang. Different eras and different times have alienation for different reasons. Like there's so much political reasons, like why like Taiwanese new wave has like feelings of alienation. It's like moving from a Confucianist society to like more of a individualist society, and the creeping Western influences and stuff. And the reason
Mhm.
that we experience alienation in our daily lives right now is completely different than
Yes.
people in Taiwan in the 90s, but it's still we can still relate to this alienation, like the way that it's cliche to talk about, but the way we have our devices, and we're further away. Did you know that like we're connecting but we're actually like further away? So there's different, but I feel like, and I feel like Mark has his own alienation. It's funny saying Mark because my name is Mark, so
Yeah.
it's like I'm talking about myself in the third person. But yeah, he feels alienated from the world. I feel like it's like Kurt, even though he is completely adrift, like he has more of an openness and a connection. Like he's
Mhm.
freer in a sense. Like we don't know when we'll see him again, but it's also like Lost is also free.
I mean, it's freeing to have your only responsibility be yourself, whereas
Absolutely.
Mark
Yeah.
has other responsibilities.
Yeah.
He has a wife
But
and
by
his
no means
family.
is it like is it glorifying this.
Exactly.
That's just an observation because the end is so sad. The last shot of this
Yeah.
movie devastates me. But like we're not there yet. We're still driving. And I was just gonna say the driving feels so of a piece with the movie. It's not a distraction. It's not like, oh, let's kill time so we can play
Yeah.
music or something like that. It's like so much they say about it. So much of this movie was driving and walking. Like just the making of it. So the movie itself reflects the making of it. A lot of it was driving, looking. She has like long unbroken shots, but they're not made to be like super pretty.
I mean, if you've ever been on a road trip, that's what that is. Especially a
Absolutely.
road trip that's going to be, you know, outdoor involved. You're basically driving and walking. So she's not wrong to portray it that way. That's for sure. Um, I feel like there's a lot of great the moments though that they do sit down and talk to each other because it's like I don't know. There's a couple of core ones that come
Yeah.
up. We've talked about a little bit about the one by the fire. There's also the one at the diner before that when they're realize they've taken the wrong turn and they need to stop and try and figure out where they're supposed to be going.
That has one of my favorite grace notes, the end of that scene as well. Yeah. So you're driving. I want to just say quickly, I just really quickly need to shout out the pipe representation in this movie. There's almost no movies where people smoke weed from pipes.
Yeah.
It's always like joints or bongs. And like
Yes.
having Kurt smoke from a pipe is just such a specific. I smoke from a pipe and I feel like an absolute sleazoid every time I do it. Like I feel like I look like I'm smoking crack or something like that. Like it has this look that's perfect for Kurt. Also, I want to shout out
Yes.
Kurt has his buttons buttoned the wrong way.
Yes.
These
I noticed. I love that.
all about introductions. Like Kurt, when you first see him, he's late. His shirt's buttoned the wrong way, and he has for some reason borrowed a like 30-inch CRT TV for a one night camping trip. It's like it's such a perfect introduction, and him smoking from the pipe is like so incredible. But yeah, so they're lost. They don't know where the hot spring is. You know, Kurt doesn't really care. He's happy to be hanging out with Mark. Mark's frustrated because
Yeah.
he's not going to be able to get home, and he's obviously frustrated. Like, and this is kind of a moment where the perspective kind of shifts from Mark to Kurt,
Mhm.
because we start with Mark, we Kurt kind of ends up being like the secondary character, but at this point, like, you know, Mark goes away and we stay with Kurt a little bit. He's making jokes with the waitress, trying to make light of the situation where Mark is obviously frustrated and he's having like a typical movie conversation where it's like, yeah, I know, I don't know your guess is as
Yeah.
good as mine where I am. But then he comes back and Kurt's like, I read the maps, like I know where it's gonna go. And Mark looks at him and it's a close up of Mark and he's just like, you think he's gonna be like, all right, like I hope so. And he's just like,
Yeah.
I never doubted you, man.
I love that moment.
That moment, like I almost burst into tears when I said that.
Yeah, it's so good.
Because he does not mean it. He did doubt him and he's talking to his wife, but it's like it's a grace moment. It's like a moment of like of friendship, a moment of just like
Mhm.
of humanity, of just like, I don't know. There's a few moments like this in this movie that kind of blow me away. Yeah,
Yeah,
that being one of them.
I think it's a great way to portray how patient Mark is. And he's not
Hmm.
overly patient, like he does, voice himself,
Sure.
but he
He's not
also
a
does.
pushover.
Yeah, exactly. He does give Kurt some grace, and it's just like, is it really worth, me trying to have the final say and be like, well, I really hope you got your shit together now. Or I could just be like, this is great. Let's go.
Yeah. And actually, I think part of the reason why it moved me is it like reminds me of a negative quality in me that I would like to be better at, which is like I am
Mm,
that like told you so person. Like I get mad and I get irritated with something and I'm like, well, if you had done this, like every time I do it, like it reminds me of like my parents and my relationship with my parents and stuff. But
yeah.
yeah, the fact that he's able to extend that grace, yeah, it's a beautiful moment. It's a small moment. Again, if you could be half watching this movie and be like, nothing is happening. But to me, I'm like an ocean of emotion is being expressed. Also, like Mark Kurt specifically, when Mark has the pipe and has the pipe like paraphernalia, it's in this like cow cup that he has to open up, and then he's like there's crumbs in it. And oh, also Kurt goes to buy weed, and only right when they get there, he's like, hey, can I borrow $10? And Mark gives it to him in his patience. And
Yes.
that's just such a funny detail that like he didn't really tell them where we were going. I maybe he did, but like they get only right when they get there, he's like, oh, by the way, I don't have money for this. Can you pay for it? Another just like Kurt detail. Like again, it really reminds me of a lot of moments remind me of Rory Culkin from A Real Pain. He like Rory Culkin, A Real Pain is like open to this like well of like joy and
Hmm.
suffering that everyone else is like has shut themselves off to because it's like how we live life and are not constantly overwhelmed by everything because he's so damaged. Because he's experienced like in a real pain, it's like he's experienced such loss, like the loss of his grandmother, I think was just like absolutely kind of pushed him over the edge. I also think A Real Pain is like one of the best movie titles ever. Because like you watch it and you're like, this guy's a real fucking pain. And then you get to the end of the movie, you're like, man, this guy is experiencing a real deep, deep
Yeah.
pain. And the endings of A Real Pain and Old Joy are almost exactly the same. I want to put that out there. But again, we'll get to the ending. We'll get to the
Yeah,
ending later.
that's so fascinating because it's such a great comparison. And like, you know, Eisenberg has worked with Kelly on Night Moves, so I wouldn't be surprised if he
Oh, true. Yeah, I'm not saying he like ripped it off or anything, but
no, no.
I really feel like both of these movies are about two people. One of them is trying deeply, deeply, deeply to connect. Feels a
Hmm.
a deep cavernous loneliness, is trying to reach out, but is also trying not to freak the other person out and like disobey the social norms and like the masculine norms and stuff. I think Kieran is more able to do that in A Real Pain. It's not like a one-to-one. They're not like the same character at all. Not
No.
at all. Actually, Kieran is incredibly well spoken in A Real Pain, and Kurt in this movie is never able to express anything. Anytime he tells a story, it's fucking meandering and like doesn't really make sense, but like you can get to the core of like what he's talking about, but it's he wants to connect so bad, but he's unable to, both in like he's not able to say it, he's not able to connect, he's not able to connect with Mark. I'm sure there's like lots of other connections that he has in his life that he would like to have,
Hmm.
and we're only seeing like a snatch of it. But it's like when this guy goes off, like there's a lot there's a lot going on with this guy.
That actually reminds me, you know, of a scene at the end if we want to make our way that way. When they do finally make it to the hot springs and they
Yep.
get in, there is that scene where he is telling a story. It's just going on forever. And you, as the audience, you also, it's funny because you cut to Mark a few times where he's just like, are we getting to the point of this? Or what are you even saying? And you, as the audience, are feeling that way too. But you're kind of like, well, he must have a point to say. And he doesn't really, but it's still kind of interesting to find, like, watch someone work through a story and realize a little too late that they didn't say what they actually wanted to say, and now it's too far, and they just need to finish the thought. At least that's how I read it.
I mean, it definitely has that. I also feel like I feel like in each of these interactions, when they do have dialogue, I just feel like everything is said. Like I feel like everything you need to know about Kurt is in that monologue. Like
Mhm,
the story is like thing, and you're like, what's the point of the story of like you running into this person over and over again? But like the way he lives his life, the way he deals with people, what his wants and needs, I feel like are
mhm.
all in this like 3 minute monologue, just not in the Hollywood filmmaking sense that we would want. Okay, so this I feel like once we get to the hot springs, so okay, yeah, they're lost. They camp
Mhm.
among the trash and the nature. They do make it to the hot springs. I feel like this hot springs section is to me like the we're entering the ambiguous section of the movie. These are where all the ambiguous things happen. Okay, I think this is the time to get into the queer
Yeah, for sure.
possible reading of the film. Okay. So I don't think that the movie being good depends on this, but I think that there is a very compelling case to be made that Mark and Kurt have had at least one sexual
Mhm.
interaction in the past that possibly is part of why they're not close and
Yeah.
part of why like Mark wants to kind of keep him out of his like normal life. I'm not saying like the Mark is like a closeted like gay man, but it's just like a thing, you know,
Mhm,
that
mhm,
happened, a sexual experience that happened, and I think he's like kind of he's put it behind him, and he's willing to just like hang out with this dude, you know, as old friends because they are old friends. Like it's not that's not the only way they know each other, but I think there is I think there's inadequate enough to like suggest that just by the way that Kurt talks to him. The romantic way, like I said, like you were the best part about it. Like it's like romantic. Kurt's also wearing a pink shirt. I'm not trying to say that Kelly Reichardt is like such a crude filmmaker, as if to say like pink shirt equals the
Yeah,
gay man, but it's there. Like it's like
it is.
he's less kind of, it's not that Mark is like masculine. It's just that he's masculine in the sense that like he's very compartmentalized and keeps his feelings like under wrap, and like
Yep.
Kurt's more of a live wire who will just kind of say dumb shit and put himself out there and be vulnerable. Again, but also dissimilar to Kieran Culkin in A Real
Hmm.
Pain. So they find the hot springs, they fill it up. I want to in the middle of this queer reading, I want to just put an aside because we got to have our asides. We have a certain amount of
Yes.
asides that we have to have with every
Yes.
show. Um, the aside that when they were making the movie, this was discussed in the Criterion disc, but there was like a park ranger or something there, and they were at the hot
Mm.
springs, and he was like, "Oh, I absolutely never in a million years would go into those tubs." He's
Yeah.
like, "We have found everything in those tubs. We found a floater, which is a dead body."
Uh,
But he
yeah.
thing, and then they were trying to make it feel better. They were like, "Well, it's can't be that bad, right? Like, with the heat, it probably kills it." And he's like, "Nope, perfect breeding ground for bacteria." So I think that's really really funny. But yeah, they get to the hot springs, they fill it up, and it's like Kurt is actually like he's paid off. There's like a reason that Mark goes on this. It's not like a total foolhardy endeavor. This place is absolutely beautiful. There's lots of shots of the forest, sound design of the forest. There's lots of quiet moments in this. As soon as they get in, like Mark is completely relaxed. He's laying down, his eyes are closed. Kurt is not. He is like fidgeting.
Yeah.
He's, when Mark takes the sip of the beer, it feels just like natural. He just kind of dips out and has it. Kurt's drinking it kind of with like a ticks and stuff. He's not at ease. He's not able to fall into this at easeness that like Mark was earlier trying to access through meditation. Like
Hmm.
he's not there. He gets out at a certain point. He tells this long goddamn story that he runs into the same person over and over again. So we just learned that he doesn't really know how to communicate. He doesn't really know what a good story would be, or how to express himself. And it turns from one thing into another, this series of just coincidences of just like running into a person over and over again, to this like weird interaction he had with this shopkeep who thinks
Yeah.
that he said Jesus Christ, and they say superstar, and he's like, what? But then he's like, and that reminded me of a dream I had, and this shopkeeper was in the dream, and like the shopkeeper was holding me and saying like, it's okay, it's okay, and then says like, sorrow is nothing but worn out joy.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's so heartbreaking. It's like he's having a dream about this he's so lonely. He's having a
Yeah.
dream about this
Exactly.
shopkeeper
Yeah.
holding him and telling him it's everything's going to be okay. That's what he
Yeah.
wants to hear. Like,
Yeah.
that's if that's what his dream is. I've had dreams that are like lonely, and you wake up, they're not even fun to interpret. You're just like, I
Yeah.
was lonely. That's a dream about loneliness. I've had those dreams, and like that's such a lonely.
I think that's great because again, it's another way for her to say how lonely he is and how he is yearning for closeness, specifically Mark's closeness, in any capacity. I don't think that Kurt ever thinks that, hey, we're going to be best friends who hang out every day, because Kurt probably knows that he's not going to be there tomorrow.
Yeah,
And he doesn't know when he's going to be back, but he wants to know that they're on the same level of friendship, and he knows that right now they're not. Like, as you
yeah.
said earlier on, like their closness to each other is not on the same
It's not
playing field at
commensurate.
all.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like very unbalanced. They still love between both of them, but it's one is more involved emotionally than the other. So it is interesting to see how that leads up into the scene that I know that we will be talking about in
Such buildup.
the bath.
Such buildup for almost nothing happening,
It's nothing, but it also is
but it's a lot. Yeah,
a lot. But Yes, so we get into a scene. Mark is in the bath, and Kurt gets behind him and starts massaging his back.
Giving him a
Um,
shoulder massage. And he at
yeah.
first is like extremely uncomfortable. He's like wriggling. He's like,
Hmm.
hey, hey, man. And then, after about a minute of him trying to be comfortable, not being comfortable,
Hmm.
Kurt just kind of puts his hand on Mark's forehead, and he does finally kind of settle down. It's like settling down like a dog. Like it
Hmm.
happens
Hmm.
very gradually. And then he does like seem to calm down, and his hand, which was before like on the edge of the tub, falls into the tub.
Yeah.
And then we see shots of nature. It's like it feels like sereneness has been achieved,
Hmm.
perhaps like, a connection between them, so just on the masculinity reading of the movie, it's like, yo, bro, like why are you massaging my
Yeah.
shoulders, bro? Like, this is weird. But then he kind of lets go, and they're able to actually have this connection, so they break through the bonds of masculinity a little bit, and they have
Yeah.
a peaceful, serene moment. I think that is the masculinity read that you could do on that moment. The only thing that complicates that for me, which I think is a very compelling point, is how prominent the wedding ring on Mark's hand is in that shot.
Mm.
It's, to me, the like most overtly like I don't want to say symbolic, but like it's so prominent. Like his hand is there. It's the ring hand. The ring is
Yeah.
there. The ring goes into the thing. If I was watching literally any movie, and I was in like a film semiotics class, and two people of opposite genders, let's say there's a man in the tub and the woman comes and like massages the shoulder, and then we see the hand with the wedding ring go into the tub. Any film professor worth his salt will tell you that they're about to engage in sex.
Yeah.
And again, I don't want to imply that Kelly Reichardt would be so crude as to invoke this imagery, but at the end of this long kind of different shots of the nature, the trees, the birds, and everything. You see this like water rushing into this like river. Like, I don't know what you would call it, a babbling brook. The water looks like there's no other way to say it. The water looks like cum.
Yeah.
And this is a medium where Alfred Hitchcock has a train going into a tunnel
Yeah.
to symbolize sex at the end. So I'm not saying that she was like, we need to get the cum shot like when we do this movie, but the way that that's edited together, I'm like, it's the fact that we don't see anything after that. If we saw the hand
Yeah.
and then they were hanging out a little bit, and then Kurt finishes rubbing his back and then goes back into his tub,
Yes.
or literally anything else, but we
I
see
know.
the hand shot, we see shots of nature, quiet, serene, and then we see them walking back.
Yeah.
um, I've never been so convinced that like something happened in that moment, and I feel like that's what Kurt needs.
Hmm.
Like a moment of intimacy that was like the moment of intimacy before he goes and like disappears. Like I feel like that fulfills its purpose in whatever way for Kurt. And I feel like for Mark, it's like, because like you said, like they're not going to hang out again.
Yeah.
Like this is it. They probably won't see each other for years, and if they do, they'll never talk about this again. And they're certainly not going to
No.
talk about it on the walk back or the car ride back or really ever again. But it really, I've never been so convinced that something like I really feel like that is in the movie, and it actually blows my mind that I searched like Kelly Rake or like Old Joy gay, Old Joy
Hmm.
queer, and I
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
could not find anything. Maybe I'm just really bad at Googling, or Googling it. Google, well, everyone knows Google shit now, but I did not see a
Yeah.
lot of queer readings of this movie.
Neither did I. And then I was like, well, maybe I read it incorrectly and it's just me who's seeing this. I was like, there's no way. So when you said off the top that you wanted to talk about that, I was like, okay, well, I'm not just, going insane.
I really feel like it's there. I'm not saying you need to accept that that's what happened and like
Hmm.
that's the
No.
canonical reading, but like it's there if you want it. It's
Yeah.
right there. It's on the top. Like you don't need to. Again, that's why I feel like every time anyone talks about this movie, they're like, it's about two friends who can't make a connection. And it
Hmm.
absolutely is about that. And it absolutely is about one person who's gone forward, one person not. But it feels like that is the text. And the subtext is like, masculinity, sexuality, deep yearning, one person who's lost and one person who is, one person who has a life, one person doesn't, one person being free and one person not being free.
Yeah.
Mark being unable to meditate, and they only have like one interaction in the movie, him and his wife, at least in person, other than like the other one on the phone, and it's like a stilted, awkward conversation. So we are meant to see that like it's not paradise. It's not like he's living in paradise and he's got this friend who's like trying to drag him out of it and he's got to get back.
Yeah.
It's like he's ill at ease, and like maybe somehow this like reconnecting with this person, reconnecting with a different part of himself that's like separate from the life that he leads with his wife. In some way, this is like closing a door that he can
Yeah.
now go and like be a father.
That's pretty good. But I
I'm not
hadn't thought
saying it
about
like
that.
makes absolutely perfect emotional sense. So you could be like, how does that work exactly? I don't know, but it feels like that's what's
No,
happening to me
I
when I
think it
watch it.
does. I think it does. And like actually I before we move on to the second segment, I do want to talk about the last shot, the last scene of this film. Now they're making their way back to the city. He has to drop them
Yeah.
off at his car, or his van that he's living in. And you mentioned already that you found it heartbreaking. I also did. I think it's a bummer ending, but it's a bummer ending, but it's not super depressing. It just kind of feels like, well, you're not expecting anything more from this
No, and
interaction between them.
it is really just like it's yeah, you said that Kelly Reichardt really cares about the introductions, and the introductions of Mark and Kurt say a lot while not seeming to say that much at all. Again, all
Mhm.
the life's happening on the margins. I think she cares a lot about how we leave them off as well. Mark goes
Yes.
home to his family, even though, they had like their little tiff at the beginning, like they have a stable family. Kurt goes
Mhm.
into like the world.
Mhm.
He's on a street. He's walking around. He literally has no direction. He's not going anywhere. Someone starts to talk to him, maybe a transient person. He talks to them. Like he's just completely alone in this world with no direction. Yeah, that made me really sad.
Yeah.
Because again, like and it could be just that I am a lonely, depressed, alienated person. In some ways I am, even though I do have a lot of community and like I have no reason
Mhm.
to feel this way. It's just like the modern condition, basically. But yeah, I felt so bad for like we don't know where Kurt's gonna sleep.
I know. Yep.
We don't see Kurt inside other than at the diner. When he picks him up, he's like he's has a wagon, like they're next to that house, but he's not inside of it. He doesn't get
Mm-mm.
dropped off at that house. He could be sleeping on a bench that night. He could be out of town. He could be dead in 2 months. We just like don't know. Like, but it really doesn't seem like he has anything that's holding him down. He seems completely unmoored, and that's like a as you get older, it feels scary to like see a character like that, You
Yep.
you're like, both of them are scary in their own way, It's like I'm disconnected and disaffected, and my wife, I don't feel connected. Like, am I ready to be a father? Who knows? Like that will resonate as scary to a lot of people, and other people who
Mhm.
feel more are like unattached or whatever are like, am I going to be completely alone in this world?
Yeah.
I think back to that Donnie Darko thing, like, every living being on earth dies alone, and like the dog who goes under the porch to die. Anyway, these are
Yeah.
I'm getting deep and existential, but Kurt, the fact that we don't see Kurt go anywhere and he just stands there and there's nothing. It's heavy to me
It is heavy, but I
at
think
this
it's like the
time.
perfect way to end this story.
100%. I think it's a perfect movie. I think it's a perfect object. I think all of her movies are like I don't think she's made anything less than an excellent movie. But
Mhm. Mhm.
to me, this movie is her at her most economical and her simplest and at once most profound. I also think about in Synecdoche, New York, you have the one character who's trying to erect a scale model of life
Mhm.
to show like how brilliant, how the complexities of life and make that brilliant genius work of art. And another
Yep.
character is making portraits that are so small she has to use a magnifying glass to look at them. So like the termite art versus the white elephant art, but also just like saying simplicity and
Hmm.
economy, and saying something with nothing, saying a lot with very little. I feel like this is. I just feel like it's a perfect movie.
I could not agree more. I think, especially, I don't know, not to get into because we've already kind of talked about, how people approach films differently. That's with every film, not just hers, but it would be hard not to relate to something in this film at some point in your life. It might not
Totally,
work the first time you watch it, but it might work the second time. So for anyone who's listening who has seen the film and maybe hasn't seen it in a while, this is your sign to rewatch it. I'd say it's
hundred
also,
percent.
as we said, very short. So it's not going to take up a lot of your time.
We'll get you to bed real early.
Exactly. So no, that's great. We'll continue talking about the film a bit after this, but I do want to get briefly into the second segment just to
Sure,
give the listeners a bit of context about where she was in her. So River of Grass was her first film from 1994, and we won't get too much into the plot
sure,
of these films, but more so, what's the most interesting fact about this is that Old Joy is her second feature film. So she did some shorts in between
hmm
River of Grass and Old Joy. But if you see those two timestamps, you're like, that's a large gap
12
between
years, right?
first. Yes. So that's a long time. She couldn't get funding for a feature for that time. So she did do some shorts, but it took a while for her to get funding. And now who she is, the Kelly Reichardt that we all know, we all think that's obviously insane that she couldn't get funding. But I could see that after, in the 90s, people probably were not as open to these type of stories, especially if a woman's going to be telling these stories.
Sure,
So there's an unfortunate large gap there, but she still manages to get funding for this, and she's always making very low budget and very small crew films. So she's really not asking for much money to make these fantastic pictures. River of Grass, though, has a different visual look to it, obviously, because it is
yeah.
again from the 90s, and there is a bit of a different tone there, but you can still see Kelly Reichardt in that film.
It's extraordinarily interesting because it kind of has the tenor of almost like a post Tarantino
Yes.
crime flick, and it certainly has elements of that. I think it was highly it was a collaboration, I think, between Kelly and Larry Fessenden, who
Hmm.
is like one of the two lead actors, but also helped her edit the movie. The editing rhythms have like a jazzy feel to them that uh is echoed with the music. There's like jazz in the movie. We see the father character of the lead woman playing drums at one point, and yeah,
Hmm.
it's very interesting. But I feel like it still has the concerns and the visuals, like the framing of a Kelly Reichardt movie. It's like people who are on the edge of society, who are disaffected. But yeah, it definitely is very inspired by Badlands and Terrence Malick. But yeah, there's no sense of trying to make this like to prettify this. It's a lot of
No,
ordinary
not at
stuff.
all.
It is framed beautifully, and she has an amazing visual sense. But yeah, it's interesting. I think it comes from where she shot it because it's in southern Florida, so it doesn't feel like her Oregon movie at all. It feels like a a southern Florida movie. I feel like she is very much inspired by her locations, and I think there's like a tactility in all of her movies that connects it. Even though this one, it relies a lot on voiceover that I think is meant to echo once again like Badlands and Terrence Malick's movies. It's even though it's completely different and there's like 12 years between these two movies, I can see
Hmm.
I can see a little bit of the continuity. But it's cool to see how much she evolved as well.
No, for sure. I think it's very much like, but kind of something you said earlier, even in terms of night moves, that she is able to do something that is slightly out of what you expect from her, but it still has her voice. It still has her
Yeah, it
heart,
it
I
is
guess, in it.
technically a genre movie about two lovers on the run, even though they are like don't seem to be that attracted to one another sexually or otherwise. I don't know if they have sex. They might, but it's not, it's not. And whether they have even really committed a crime that is worthy of being
Yeah.
chased is another question. Um, but it's not like a comedy about that. It's not like the Wrong Man with Dave Foley where he thinks that he's like a lead suspect for murder, so he's like on the run. It's just like a very lackadaisical um run picture where they barely even get out of the town that they're running from.
Yeah.
So you can see like it's like an inverted genre picture. A genre picture with none of the like typical stuff that you would expect from it, but a lot of hanging out, a lot of dingy locations. I don't want to say ugly people. I don't like to people shame, but certainly not like Hollywoodized
Yeah.
looks. Larry Fessenden, he doesn't have a forehead. He has an 8 head.
I mean, you said it.
Somebody had to. Hey, somebody had to.
I'll leave that's on you. No, I agree. But I mean, I love that even this film, they're just regular looking dudes, and I think that
Yeah,
also lends into just how familiar the characters feel. And it's interesting now because getting into the film that she does after this, which is Wendy and Lucy, that's the first time you get like a bigger star. Like Michelle Williams is a really big star. She's very good at making herself not seem like that when she's in films, especially when she's in Kelly's films. But at the end of the day, a lot of people I'm sure who had never heard Kelly Reichardt's name went to this film because it's a Michelle Williams film. So that's
100%. Michelle Williams has lended her indie cred to Kelly Reichardt. I think it's one of the most admirable things that Michelle Williams
yes.
has ever done, and I think that she's I think sometimes a hotly debated actor. Like a lot of people didn't like her work in The Fablemans recently.
Oh yeah.
I think
Oh
that
gosh, yeah.
I did personally. I did. I'm a
I
defender.
did too. Oh my God, that's a
But
whole other aside.
it honestly reminds me of complicated feelings I've had with another actress who goes for it, who is Julianne
Okay.
Moore,
Hmm.
who in my earlier days in my 20s, I didn't appreciate Julianne. I thought she went too far. I said, Julianne, why don't you calm down a little bit? But now in my 30s, I love her. I go back and watch like Magnolia and Boogie Nights, and I'm like, she is so amazing. She go can access melodrama in a way
Hmm.
that a lot of people are just too afraid. A lot of like
Yes.
British actors playing Americans are just not capable of doing for all their like affect and stuff. She's amazing. I think Michelle Williams is amazing, and she fits the bill of like not really care like her having no vanity. Like
Yes.
she is like obviously unwashed and in like weeks old clothes in Wendy and Lucy.
Yeah.
Um, not yeah, it's not a vain performance, but also she's perfectly in tune with the movie where she's not overacting at any moment. It's a small performance. Um, that's just like fantastic.
We love an actor who's not always reaching for an Oscar. That
Yes.
we definitely appreciate that.
Yes.
That's
100%.
for sure.
Yes, exactly. That's yeah. And I didn't really thread that needle very well, but I was trying to say so
No,
while
yeah.
someone who like really does go for it and can go for it also can do quiet things. To me, it's like Nick Cage, where like Nick Cage in Pig, it's like one of the smallest performances. I think it's like in his like top three best performances ever, but
Hmm.
who also like will go for it and isn't like bound by you know. We lost a lot in acting over the
Hmm.
last 50, 60 years. Like there's a lot of really good actors, and I'm not saying I want to go back to it where like most of the actors where a lot of the actors were just like Jimmy Stewart playing himself and like and types and stuff, but we lost a lot of the different modes that people are able to express themselves.
Yeah,
And we're so tied to like realism.
I
Um
know.
and so like when someone like Julianne Moore or Michelle Williams can make a choice and risk humiliation by treating acting as an art form.
Yep.
Kelly Reichardt, the reason we love this movie is not because it kowtows to like any commercial interests whatsoever. Wendy and Lucy, Old Joy, we just talked about River of Grass. None of these are trying to make money or trying to like get Oscars. It's just someone trying to express something very simple and very elegantly.
Which is great because kind of tying into, Michelle Williams and Wendy and Lucy. From that, she's been able to make films on a more steady cadence than she was before, which is
Yeah, it feels like
fantastic.
she's got a movie coming out every 2 years since
I
you
know.
had like 12 years, and then I think Old Joy actually like was quite a critical hit when it came out. It was kind
Hmm.
of like a darling of, you know, Will Oldham talks, or no, sorry, Daniel London talks about how he went to the um LA Film Critics Association to accept an award for Old Joy, and he saw
Mm.
Steven Spielberg there in the audience,
Oh,
and
wow.
he was so heartened because he'd worked with Spielberg on Minority Report a couple
Oh,
years
okay.
back, and he was so heartened. He was like, the idea that a movie like Minority Report or like a Steven Spielberg movie can be held up as cinema and celebrated in the same ceremony that a movie like Old Joy
Yeah.
can also be celebrated, that like art is allowed to be different things. Not everything has to be blockbuster. Like, I understand not everything can be Old Joy. We need some
Yeah.
things to be more direct and stuff. But the fact that we can make space for both of these things, and that like we can, in our taste, encompass both of these such far extremes of like what a movie can be and why they're perfect in their own way. I love Minority Report. It's one
Oh,
of the
it's great.
best.
It's
It's
great.
fucking great. But yeah, that's just a little aside. I think we've reached our aside quota. Um,
Probably. We might be granted maybe one each. We'll see as we
ooh,
get towards the end.
good, because I will have notes that I didn't say that I
Okay,
want to.
good.
I'll want to rapid fire say.
That's what this next segment is for,
Oh,
essentially,
no way,
because
no way.
we've already like that's essentially before and after for the listeners. You know what she did before and after, and where she's headed. She's got a wealth of other films. Still a tight enough filmography, but she's got way more if you haven't seen them, for you to watch, and they're all great. But getting into the last segment, just about trademarks and also anything we haven't mentioned that we just want to cap off on. I'm looking at my notes to trademarks. We've actually already talked about
We have nailed
what I
almost
had.
everything that I wanted to say.
Um, yeah, so actually, if there's anything else that you wanted, the one last thing, and we did kind of talk about it, and maybe it's part of your final notes too, or not, and I'll pass it off to you, but just kind of talking about, because you mentioned River of Grass is Florida, and then she moves her films up to the Pacific Northwest, and that or outdoor space that we see in all of her films,
I feel
and
like
how
most of it is
important it
Oregon,
is.
if I'm not mistaken. Like
I think
Portland
so.
is in showing up. I feel like it's like the Oregon Trail in Meek's
Hmm.
Cutoff, which is incredible. I can't remember exactly where First Cow is. Meek's Cutoff and First Cow are both so incredible. They're again, they're like inversions of genre movies. Um,
I
that
think it's
are
also Oregon. I think it's just certain women that's Montana.
oh,
But it's
right. And certain
still,
and is certain
same.
women, is that an adaptation of short stories? It
It
must be,
is.
right?
It is. Yeah.
They're again, they're it's she reminds, she's like Flannery O'Connor or something like that,
Mm.
where she can just like, she can tell a story that's so simple and so evocative
Yeah.
and draw characters through such like small details of like how they live their life.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, certain women is absolutely
I
incredible
love
as well,
that.
despite what my film society said during the we're all a little loopy during the pandemic, so I'll give them some grace. But certain women is, it probably is like, ends up being the most commercial one because it has Laura Dern, has Kristen Stewart,
Yeah.
um, and
Michelle Williams. Yeah.
Lily Gladstone is like so heartbreaking. Like
Ugh,
in that movie, like
trust
her
me.
and Kristen Stewart, like the connection that they feel, and then the scene with Lily Gladstone just saying to Kristen Stewart, like, I'm like, I'm sad that you're not doing your class anymore. I look forward to it every week. That feels
Yeah.
like Kurt in
I know.
like
Yeah.
that bleeding heart, that deep yearning for connection that like she has for her in that movie. Like, I feel like that's a lot of that's all over her filmography. Obviously, it's like not the concern of every single one of her movies. I wouldn't say that that's what Meek's Cutoff is about. It's more about like men leading you into peril and destruction. Okay, I'm gonna rapid fire just mention some of the notes that we like had touched on, but not exactly these
Please.
moments. There's a moment where Kurt is like, "Are you looking forward to fatherhood?" But it actually sounds like he's like wanting to say like, "Are you actually looking forward to fatherhood?" Like he just cannot
Yeah.
believe that like Mark wants to do this, and he sees his freedom as like something essential.
Yeah.
Um, and but he also says like he's like having a kid so fucking for real. Like I've
I
never
know.
gotten myself into something I couldn't get myself out of. I think of the character in Leaves of Grass who leaves her daughter because she just doesn't feel like an emotional connection to her
Yeah.
daughter. So I just feel like there's these yeah, kind of like people who are on the fringes of society but who are like desperately human, who are so like all these feelings are so human. They're not plot contrivances. They're just really they're people who feel a lot and who don't feel like they fit in. There's a moment where he's talking about taking night classes and physics. He's like, I knew more. I knew more than they do. I understand it, but it's not the final answer. And Mark's like, you understand like string theory and everything. And Kurt's just like, I think what it is that it's something that like when you look at it, it doesn't look like it has any order at all, but it actually does. And that sounds like to me like a rationalization of him with his own life.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't know where he's going, he doesn't know what's going on, but there's a meaning to all of this. It's not for nothing. I'm not living my life for nothing. And also his theory that the entire universe is in the shape of a tear falling through space.
Yep.
Just such a deep sadness and everything he says.
I know.
Every time he tries to say something, like he talks at the start like about I don't remember where he had gone, but he's like, "How was your trip?" He was like, "Oh, it's transformative. I'm a totally different person, really." And it's like he's trying to convince himself.
Yes. Yep.
And every time he says something like this, he just like looks off. It's just like the deep sadness. He's not really even trying to like hide it. But he knows what he's supposed to be doing.
Yeah. There's a beautiful like openness to him that a lot of us are afraid to say. We all have these thoughts, but we stop ourselves before it comes out. And I personally always admire people like Kurt, even if they are chaotic, but ones who would just say what's on their mind and they're like, it's out there now.
Yeah.
I can't take it back. Yeah.
Just a couple other moments. One of the images that always like stays with me from the movie is Mark in the tub and his eyes when Kurt is telling him the story. Because there definitely is a little bit of like what you said, he's just kind of being like, what the fuck is the point of this story? But he just is able to just completely let go. Like he looks so free in that
Yeah.
moment. And Kurt's not able to access that at all.
Yeah.
So he has a freedom in a sense, but he's also just like trapped. Like he's
Yep.
trapped in that sense of like wherever I go, there I am. Another thing I learned from the conversation, Mark was initially supposed to smoke pot, but didn't feel authentic because Daniel London, the actor, doesn't smoke. Um, but I just think it's just such an incredible detail that he doesn't smoke, that he's holding on to this weed, but he doesn't smoke. He's holding
Mm,
on to the pipe and stuff, and Mark's
yeah.
like, wow, or no, Kurt's like, wow, you really hold on to things, don't you? And it's just so
Yeah.
funny because like uh it's Kurt who holds on to things. Mark's able to actually let go quite a bit. So it's just this moment of projection. And yeah, Will Oldham or Bonnie Prince Billy just like they do talk about this moment as like an ambiguous moment, like at the park and or not the park at the hot springs. And Will Oldham just says like that he's like it's just so great to be part of to be able to create this ambiguous moment of art because he said I feel at sea in those moments in real life, but to be in a
Mm,
scripted moment to be more in control like and I also got a sense of why Will Oldham was so good for this part because he does have an openness to him as well and an ability to be vulnerable. He was initially asked to be the Mark character, and I just think like the way it worked out and just the way it like yeah, and like the short story was originally supposed to be about two friends who find a moose, put it in a cooler that died, and it comes back, and it's like an urban legend. but like none of that was put into the movie. It's like what feels right. Okay, it doesn't feel right for me to smoke weed. Doesn't really feel right for this to be this whole thing. Let's just walk around. Let's get this. It feels so organic. And yeah, they talk about how seeing the movie all put together was like an epiphany to them, because again, it was like didn't wasn't really the sense of them making this movie, but seeing it with the Yola Tango music and the score. And yeah, Will Oldham just said like the film's so tiny, so intimate that it's remarkable that it reached an audience, but he hopes that people can get to see it. And yeah, those are the rest of my notes.
That's great. I love all those last points because there are those like little moments as you talk about them, they come back so vividly.
Yeah,
Because I think this film is super memorable. But I think also just with Will Oldham's final words there, it is, as you said, it is a Criterion release, and we all know that Criterion releases will bring those films to a wider audience who might not have seen them when they came out or before. With a lot of people who are just trying to watch everything that they have released. So that's great that more people will go back. And I think now because she is such a big name, people are gonna go back instinctively to just be like, okay, where did things start
I
off?
hope so, because really does feel like her first movie, even though it's not her first movie.
I know.
It is
Yeah.
like kind of the first movie of this section of her career, or at least the first feature length movie. Um, but uh, River of Grass, totally worth watching. All of her movies are absolutely worth watching, and I can't wait to see The Mastermind
Mastermind. I
soon.
know. Same. Well, I think those are great final thoughts. But I do still have one more question before I let you go. And because I do want to know what you would pair this with. I know you mentioned at the top A Real Pain, but you mentioned that you have another film that you would pick as a double bill. So I'm curious to hear what that is.
I do, Felicia. Thank you so much for asking. Um, I actually don't like double bills where both movies are basically the same.
Same.
Um,
Mine's not.
it's like you just kind of overdose. I do also think that A Real Pain is a good movie, but I think this is a great movie, and I think
Hmm.
it.
Hmm.
You know, I absolutely would see Real Pain just for like the Kieran Culkin performance. And so I think maybe I'm even underrating it, because I really do think it touches a nerve in me. These characters really do touch a nerve in me. I see a lot of
Hmm.
myself. I see like there, but for the grace of God, go I. Um, like just like who, I, there's I yeah I just I really I I I I really relate to these characters
Hmm.
in a deep way. But the film that I will recommend alongside this one is not that.
Okay.
And it's a movie that I'm going to steal from a great Adam Nayman piece he wrote on Reverse Shot, comparing Old Joy with one of my other favorite movies, My Dinner with Andre. So
Okay.
this is another movie about two old friends meeting up, connecting in a way, and then departing, unknown when they will see each other again, feeling that perhaps it has been deeply meaningful for one of them and just an anecdote for the other one. Something that I never considered about My Dinner with Andre, that the ending is sort
Hmm.
of really sad. I've always been just wrapped up. So the movie is about, yeah, two old friends who meet over dinner. The dinner is kind of dominated the conversation by Andre, who is Andre Gregory, who's like this great storyteller, theater director, man about town, and also just like
Hmm.
world traveler who has lots of stories about his travels and adventures. And a lot of it is just like Wallace Shawn, like kind of listening in rapt attention. You can kind of close your eyes and just like, I remember scenes from the movie as if they actually occur in the movie. Like Wallace
Hmm.
Shawn
Hmm.
talks about being buried alive. And I remember this when I close my eyes, I can see scenes from that as if they occurred, but they're not shown. There's no cutaways. It's just two people at dinner
Yeah.
talking. If you haven't seen it, it inspires a really good community episode uh, that pretends to be a Pulp Fiction episode, but is actually a My Dinner with Andre episode. It's fucking fantastic. But yeah, so they talk, and then Wallace Shawn kind of pushes back more in the last third of the movie. But it's a fantastic movie. It's like how much you can get out of. It's funny because it's actually the exact opposite of this movie, because this movie is not about talking, and My Dinner with Andre is all about talking. So they just talk for like 2 hours, and then Wallace Shawn leaves, and I'd always been, and then it goes to a voiceover of him being like, when I left, all I could think about was like the life and art and so much that was happening all around him, and he was excited and inspired. But he never thinks about like where Andre is going or what Andre's doing, and we crucially never see Andre's side of this, like where he goes after this. And yeah, like I said, it feels like maybe, you know, he talks about like how I will always just like think about my dinner with Andre.
Yeah.
But that's just him talking to his wife when he gets home. Like, where's Andre going at the end of this? We don't know. He's like unbound. He could be going to Mexico. He could be alone in his apartment. We have no idea. So, two movies that have similar themes, which are completely opposite in the way that they're made, have a similar sense of melancholy, are both on Criterion Collection and are crucially two of my 5-star classics.
Oh, nice. I haven't seen my dinner with Andre in so long,
Did
so
you like it
long.
when you saw it?
Oh yeah, I loved it. I love a talky movie, and I also love a movie that's not super talky. But
Yeah.
um, I need to rewatch that. That's great. I the minute you said it, I was like, yep, that makes sense.
It's also for free on Tubi right now.
Is it?
It is. I love
TV's
Tubi. It
fantastic.
has the best collection of like classic movies out of any of them, and also the best collection of like genre horror
I
action
know.
movies. It's
Trust me,
fantastic.
I love
I
Tubi.
am not being paid by Tubi. I want to point that out.
If
This
they
is not
want
an
to sponsor
advertisement.
this
If they would
episode,
love to
fine.
sponsor this episode and give me, I don't even know what they could offer. More
I
free
know.
movies?
Yeah, some merch. I'll take a tote bag if they want to
I'll,
give me
yeah,
one.
to replace my movie tote bag, which I threw in the garbage.
Yeah.
You can
Oddly
cut
enough,
that if
that's
you
a
want.
tie. That's a tie to her last film and where that's going to be on.
Oh yeah, we love movie. We love movie.
Yeah.
It's one of the best platforms.
Oh God. Um, no,
I'm so
that's
sorry.
fantastic.
Just a
No,
very civil conversation for the first like hour or so, and then just like, here's what I'm really like.
that I love that. I love that. We got to add some humor to it, which is oddly funny enough where I went with my double bill. So for anyone who has seen this film, you're probably going to be like, that's weird to go with a comedy, but sometimes you're just like, well, I want something light and funny. So I thought of randomly, and I thought about this like an hour or two ago.
Mm-mm.
Cheyenne Social Club. I don't know if you've
Cheyenne
seen that.
Social Club. I have
Yeah,
not. Gonna look it up right now.
it is a comedy western directed by Gene Kelly, starring Jimmy Stewart, Henry Fonda. Now, um, the story for the most part, they're traveling back because someone inherited a brothel. But a lot of the film is the two men who are old friends traveling to this location, and it's one of them who's leading them there. So I kind of took that part of Old
Interesting.
Joy of the leading, and there's just they have this somewhat similar dynamic where there's one who's very kind of stoic friend, and then there's Henry Fonda who's just like yapping his brain out the whole ride as they're on their horses trying to make their way. And because, whenever this is set, like in the 1800s, it's obviously takes days for them to get across like a couple states they have to cross. So, but it's funny. It is a comedy, and Henry Fonda's hilarious in it, and you probably wouldn't think of Henry Fonda as, even though he did a lot of slapstick stuff in his early years, he was more the straight man, but he's so
Totally.
funny in this movie. And if you're looking for two guys hanging out who kind of have that little bit of a grump, um, personality, and one who's just kind of oblivious and there and having the best time of his life just because he's
Sort
hanging
of
out with
an
his
odd
friends.
couple kind of
Yeah.
dynamic.
You're like, well, I think if you're like, let's put two movies together, one that's going to be heavy. The order that you play these in is really up to you, and how you want to feel at the end of the day.
I love it. I there's nothing more delightful to me as like a film goer who's like edging on having seen like 5,000 movies
Yeah.
to be recommended something where I look at the poster, I'm like, I've never heard of this. How does this have James Stewart and Henry Fonda? And I haven't heard
It's
of
so
it.
much
It's
fun.
like genuinely so delightful, like to be surprised by, like I go to the review sometimes, the review
Mhm.
cinema, and they'll play a trailer for a movie, and I'm like, how does this movie exist? Look so awesome. Have these two people in it. I've never heard of it. It's truly, I love it. So this is great. I can't wait to watch this.
No,
Um,
I think you'll like it. I honestly figured that you had heard of it, but it
no,
is kind of a forgotten film, and it's also wild because no one realizes that Gene Kelly directed this movie, and it's from
didn't
1970. So this is like towards the end of all their careers.
it's so interesting because I only know Gene Kelly having directed, like Singing in the Rain and American in
Mm,
Paris,
yeah,
as like I think he's like a co-director along with
Stanley Donen.
Stanley
Yeah.
Donen. Yeah, exactly. So that's so cool. I had no idea. Definitely gonna watch this. Also just made me think like I didn't think about Old Joy as a movie about someone leading someone somewhere, but it
Hmm.
absolutely is, and that's also what Meek's Cutoff is about. Someone being led who may or may not know where they're going. So a lot of these very interesting, this wandering that sort of
Hmm.
reflects a certain kind of uh detachment or anxiety or displacement.
Hmm.
Uh, and these people in the fringe society, this wonderful recurring themes. There's so much to get into with Kelly
I
Reichardt.
know.
I could do an episode on every one, but I know I'm gonna have to look forward to listening for the rest. Can't wait.
It's been good so far with recording, and I am excited to do the rest and just have it out there for people. But I thought this is a fantastic conversation.
I enjoyed it so much.
So many great points that I hadn't thought of, and that's why I love having these conversations because it's great to have another person's perspective instead of just me solo speaking into the void, which
Uh,
no one wants to hear.
I feel the same way. I feel the same way. Thank you. I'd be glad to come on anytime. This has been a joyous experience.
It's now on record, so you're tied to that. Um, Seeing Faces in Movies is an official podcast of the Royal Film Club. It's hosted and edited by Felicia and Roney, with intro music by Lamar Walker. If you like what you heard, let us know at seeingfacesmovies.com or send us an email at seeingfacesmovies@gmail.com. And while you're at it, please subscribe and rate the show wherever you listen to your podcasts, and stay tuned for our next episode on Night Moves. Watch more movies, and we'll catch you next time.
Every highway, let me slip away on you.